Warning, the following review talks of suicide. If you know someone in crisis or you are in crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. Help is available. That might have been one of the more emotionally driven horror movies I've seen in a long time, and I actually really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys about it. Today we are talking about The Night House. I believe I already put the warning in the beginning of the video. I will be discussing the heavy topic of suicide and those affected by the by those that have taken their own life. So that is your warning. That is your second warning. Anyone who's triggered past that, I'm sorry, but it's on you. Now, let us discuss the plot of this film and play the trailer. Reeling from the unexpected death of her husband, Beth is left alone in the lakeside home he built for her. She tries as best she can to keep it together, but then the dreams come, disturbing visions of a presence in the house call to her, beckoning with a ghostly gesture. But the harsh light of day washes away any proof of a haunting. Against the advice of her friends, she begins digging into his belongings, yearning for answers. Okay, so let's talk about this plot. Is strange. This movie comes from the director of Ritual, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and a lot of my friends do as well. So I was eager to jump on it. It dropped on my birthday, so I was trying to watch it in theaters, but parties and stuff happened instead, so I'll take that any day. And like it says, we pretty much start the film with her getting back for what seems to be a funeral. She's drinking kind of heavily, talking to her friends. She's kind of left alone for a while, as slowly but surely she later on that night, she's kind of laying in bed and she hears I assume her and her husband's song come on. And she kind of walks downstairs and checks that out. Nobody's there. What this film does really well is, instead of the kind of basic ghost scares that you would expect, they use shadows really well. They use things like if you've ever noticed certain wooden structures have an awkward kind of cutout to make a nice uniformity about it. They'll use that to make it seem like a face, and then they'll use that face to turn and make it seem, and use it as its scare. And that's what they do kind of early on in this. She continues her next day. She's still a little frazzled, didn't sleep that great. And she has to go to work. She goes to work way before she's supposed to. And in that time period of her being at work, kind of rudely thrown into a argument with a parent who's, "Why'd you give my son a C? He said you weren't here Thursday," and that's when he was going to get to make it up. She's like, I'm sorry I wasn't here Thursday, in a very, very well-acted manner of, "My husband decided to blow his brains out that day." Great. With me near. So, yeah, there's that. So the actress that her name is Rebecca Hall. The actress that plays Beth does a fantastic job of playing the mourning wife and trying to play things off as a joke, even though it's devastating to her. I'm gonna kind of try to cut to the plot a little bit quicker. It progresses. It only happens at night is when she'll hear a very familiar voice of her husband Owen saying simple things like "window" or "come here" or things like that. So it's, once again, not an utterly silent ghost or a high-pitched screaming. They use the subtlety of sound and almost like a familiar whisper, as I've mentioned before, with like a loved one kind of talking to your ear a little bit closer, trying to keep a secret. That's it for a while. She another night she wakes up and sees that there's a light across the lake of another home, and there's not another home there during the daylight. So it's fascinating She kind of begins to research into her husband's materials, and this is about as far as I'm going to cover because it's fast. The movie kept my interest enough to where I had to make sure I went to a different room that was darker so I could watch everything in detail. She begins digging through his belongings and finding out that he's been having dreams, and he's randomly waking up in different places and sleepwalking, to where he's written down a strange rummaging of notes, I guess, or strange quick illustration of notes saying "our house, but reverse," and things like that, where it's almost like you're walking in through a mirror, but it's definitely not that. That's about as far as I'm willing to discuss the plot. It's really fascinating, and the actors and actresses do a great job. The overall topic of the film is definitely suicide and how it affects other people, and I believe that Rebecca Hall did a phenomenal job with portraying that. She nails it. Her friends nail it, and pretty much the entire summary is your friends will always be there for you, whether you feel like you're alone or not. You're clearly, they're always going to be there to help you pull you out of these dark moments where you find yourself completely alone, or the love of your life is gone, and that doesn't matter in this, like, the plot of the film. They're there to talk her off ledges and try to bring her back to reality, and they hit the topic several times, so it's no major, like, crazy thing that I talk about it here, but that's the main reason I brought it up. That's the main reason I put the warning, because it's important to get it out there to people, like, there's help. But that's the plot. The plot I give an 8. I thoroughly enjoyed the plot. The actress that played Beth, Rebecca Hall, did a fantastic job. The actresses playing her friends and her neighbor, and the actor playing the neighbor does a great job. So plot's an 8, and that involves the characters. The threat itself, it's strange to say this movie has a threat, but it's not threatening. The villain, the unknown, like Owen, the ghost of Owen, he comes off as attempting to be helpful and trying to point her down the right path, less of a horror, like a scary, spooky ghost. I told one of my friends, this movie's kind of like if the Patrick Swayze film Ghost. It's as if that and a little bit of Insidious kind of like intertwined for a while. That being said, the final 20 minutes, it seems to be a new threat, and it's, once again, it definitely more of a thriller in that aspect, so it's scary. It's not going to do that well, most likely. But the threat is kind of more of almost a mystery of what's going on with that over there, and why isn't it hurting me, if that makes sense. So threat overall, I'll probably give about a 6 too. It's not, once again, it's the 6 is more of how fascinating I found the threat instead of how actually scary the threat was. That being said, we'll jump into scares next. There's probably only about 3 or 4 scares in the film, and they do a good job with not overly using the classic everything's quiet, orchestra's blaring now. There's 2 or 3 that got me pretty good, and one's really, really early on. Probably about a 4. Like, it's not necessarily scary, but it's definitely fascinating. That's the only reason why it's probably going to get a higher score, just for the movie itself, because I enjoyed it thoroughly. Sound effects, they do an excellent job, or we'll just do a sound. They do an excellent job of not overdoing it with music, and using the more subtle approach when it comes to, like, the monster whispers. The music plays and there's a warning cue for it most of the time. So sound does a really good job using the silence. So sound's probably about a 6. Is it newbie approved? Yes, I would say so. There's not really any gore. There's no massive violence throughout it. It's a sensitive scene. It's a sensitive topic. So it's kind of it's definitely not, it's not, what is it rated? It's rated an R, but I believe it's just about the subject. There's not a lot of like heavy language. There's not a lot of blood or guts. So I would say it's probably newbie approved. It might come off more as like a secret window style thing. I believe that was the name of the Johnny Depp movie. Would I recommend this? Yes, I'd recommend watching it. I probably will only watch it one more time just to see if I missed any major scares, but I do recommend it to others. Let's do an overall rating. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. Unfortunately, it was more of a thriller, but I enjoyed the movie enough to not give it like a thriller score, because it does do some horror elements really well. So that's why for this one, I want to give it about, what's our current list so far? I'm going to give our first 7 to this. Like, I like 7's where I'll draw the line, because it definitely comes off more as a thriller, less of a horror movie, but it is a really well shot and really intense movie that talks about a very difficult subject that could have been pretty much laughed out of the theater. But yeah, I'd give it a 7 for sure. 7, maybe a 7.3, just because I found it to be a good film. It's not scary per se. There are like a couple of good jump scare scenes, but it's the mystery of it that really drove me to this score. I hope you all have a great day. I hope this was helpful. Stay scared, take care, and we'll tune in to the next one, I hope. Bye.